Whoa.
Right?
No, I'm not dancing.
Hit us with some music. Hit us with some music. Hello, my name is Malandri Jacobs, Quality Assurance Engineer for Oculus. We often receive certain questions about our software from potential customers and existing users, and we're here to answer them today. I'm joined by Robert Kendall, Chief Commercial Officer, who's here to help answer some of these questions. So Robert, why do people use Oculus data analytics and software?
Some customers will use Oculus purely just to do specific type of reporting and insights into their data. Other customers use it to essentially monitor the data sets and build automations and triggers to do certain actions when data pieces come together or don't come together. Some customers use it for a machine learning and AI component, which is essentially a concept of digital twinning that we build. I think there's a variety of reasons. I think specifically if you're doing anything with data and you want to understand your data and you want to present data to your, let's call it your suppliers or your customers, Oculus is specifically a tool for you.
So for those who have never heard of Oculus, how would you define Oculus?
Simply, Oculus is built as a data platform or a reporting tool. It's a low-code to no-code platform which allows you as a customer to quickly come to a visualization point to essentially build dashboards, reports, on top of your data.
So how would you explain business intelligence software as a service to our viewers?
Well, BI as a service is using our platform, meaning you don't need to go and purchase software, install it, hire a team of developers. Essentially, you basically just subscribe to the platform, connect it into your environment. You could even let the Oculus team branch out and become as a consulting team, help you deliver the solutions or the value on top of Oculus that you're trying to achieve.
So would you say that all businesses need business intelligence and reporting?
No, not necessarily. Businesses that generate a lot of data and that want to build insights into their data points and are specifically trying to improve their business offering or their processes around what their data is potentially telling them, they're an Oculus customer.
Okay, great. So that brings us to Oculus. So what are the advantages of the Oculus Business Intelligence as a service offering?
Because of our price offering and our price structure, how we license the software, I think it's a very low cost investment in the beginning, especially specifically if you want to kind of try the software out. We have a really cool model that we've recently started to employ across specifically new customers, where we essentially have a try before you buy policy. The concept there around is that we kind of enter into like a POC with a customer, build something that they're trying to achieve, prove that our software works to solve their business problem, and then the licensing kicks in. It's also, you don't specifically need to go and procure servers or virtual machines in your private or public cloud. You can essentially just switch Oculus on, connect to a database, and you can start visualizing your data.
So most businesses work with sensitive or confidential data. So will their data be secured when using Oculus?
Yeah, it's again a common question. You know, we've got customers who use our Oculus and their cybersecurity or pathologies, their specific business, and they trust the Oculus framework. How we do it is a variety of different techniques. So we obviously apply multi-factor authentication. We have single sign-on enabled in Oculus. If we store credentials, the credentials are encrypted. Our data center that we use is specifically GDPR compliant. So there's a variety of different processes and steps in place to prevent data leakage or data breaches.
And when using Oculus, who owns the business or the user data?
Well, the customer still owns their own data. We don't take any of the ownership around that data. That is the customer's data. We specifically are just acting as a surfacing layer to present that data in a formed approach. However you want to kind of slice and dice your data, what metrics you want to measure, what automations you want to build, it's just using a layer on top of your data. You own, or the customer would own their own data.
So this question has two parts to it. So businesses don't always have the means to host their data. So can Oculus host their data for them? And where is the Oculus software as a service platform hosted?
We can definitely host data on behalf of a customer. We can do that either in our own private cloud. We specifically use a data center out in Germany. It's very secure, it's GDPR compliant. We wouldn't do it if it wasn't. Or specifically if we do an on-prem, which is essentially deploying Oculus as a service, but specifically into a customer's own network. We can also still host the data warehouse or the data sets on behalf of the customer, but it will be inside of the customer's network, just on an Oculus database server.
Businesses often start small and then expand later. Can Oculus scale as the business needs change?
Definitely. Again, actually just came out of a customer call where they wanted to start small, and that's actually what we always encourage. Start to use the software, start to get familiar with it, and as your offering on the software package grows and how you offer it to either your user base internally or externally for that matter, then you scale the server of the database in terms of specifically maybe you want to store more data, or you want faster compute, or necessarily you want to upgrade to different versions of the software. So we have a tiering process where we enable different features. So you might want to just start with basic reporting and nothing else. And then you want to potentially progress to other feature sets that are necessarily in an enterprise grade. And then you can just basically very simply upgrade.
So this is an important question businesses ask at the onset of their data analytics deployment. Does Oculus require any specific infrastructure?
No, essentially if you're going to use Oculus software as a service, you would potentially only need a stable internet connection and then a phone or a tablet or a PC with a browser. But obviously if you're going to do the on-premise deployment and you want to use Oculus inside of your network, then yes, you would need some server infrastructure, yeah.
So does Oculus offer on-premise BI to suit businesses' privacy requirements?
A big part of our offering is the ability to deploy Oculus in a customer's private public cloud, on-premise data center, whatever that specific requirement is. Recently, we had a customer specifically purchase the software primarily because of that feature. So, if you got, let's say, sensitive data that isn't allowed to leave specifically your network or your country for whatever the reasons are, that's a big selling point or use case for the use of the software, is that we achieve that by then deploying on-prem. And that really does tick the privacy requirement.
That's impressive. So businesses have various data sources. Which databases does Oculus connect to?
All the common specific database technologies out there we can connect to. So your stock standard SQL Server, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud, MySQL, Oracle, etc. We've also obviously got the ability to connect to APIs. So we've gone and built these templates that can connect to these different third-party software. Essentially, the easy answer there is yes, we can connect to anything and everything.
So moving on to a more technical question. So how does Oculus query a customer's database?
Basically, we use those out-of-the-box connectors. We know which technology then to use and how to form the SQL. Our servers then essentially just make a call to the database in that SQL language or using that SQL provider, and the query is then executed on the database server, and essentially the data is then just returned to us. What this means then is, customers can potentially leverage the investment they've already made on those databases, where they've built a lot of business logic specifically in SQL functions, views, or stored procedures, and they can just reuse that and surface it into Oculus.
Can Oculus users share and embed dashboards in various different applications?
It's probably one of the most commonly used features in Oculus. The sharing and embedding of dashboards is essentially a feature that we enable from the very entry-level version of the software, or the first version of the software, all the way to the top. The reason we do that is specifically we don't want to hold the customer's data to ransom. We want to enable everybody to view the dashboards, see the data. We don't want users to prevent other parts of the business viewing the data for fear of incurring extra licensing costs. Our goal is access to all. The biggest fundamental part of the software is sharing and embedding.
When adopting new software, this question is always top of the mind for potential customers. So how easy is it to train new users to use the Oculus application?
We try to create a different view to using the software. And what I mean by that is we often get complimented on the slickness or the ease of use of Oculus by current customers. And they say it's so much easier to use or user-friendly compared to X, Y, or Z tools. We've also got a whole YouTube channel that essentially helps customers learn how to connect to a database, how to build their first data model, how to publish a dashboard, how to build explores. So from the overall feedback that we get from customers is that the platform is very easy to use.
So does Oculus support self-service initiatives for BI users to create their own reporting?
The way we do this is by a bit of, let's call it super user or admin training. We want to empower users to go and build their own dashboards and build their own explores. The reason for that is while we're busy growing our product and building features, we don't necessarily want to have all the customers phoning us, asking us for help to build the dashboard. So a key goal of what we measure ourselves on is how easy it is for our partners and our customers to be able to build their own dashboards.
Can Oculus be white labeled to look like the customer's own BI?
Yep, so white labeling is an enterprise feature that we have. It is obviously specifically to a specific use case about what a partner or a customer is trying to achieve. But yep, we do offer white labeling, which essentially means that the end user who's consuming the reports would have no idea that they're even using Oculus as a product. So we can do that by applying custom DNS names or DNS entries and specifically custom logos. So, if you want to purely white label the solution, you can do that, with very little to no effort.
And then does Oculus cater to data automation?
Yeah. The way we do data automation is essentially we've built a low to no code platform where what we do is, because we've connected to the data sources, we can then go and configure what data source we want to monitor, specifically what table or what column we want to monitor. We can then configure what value we want to monitor or like for how long. A good use case example is think of as a sensor that's monitoring a temperature. And you want to say, well, I want to trigger off a WhatsApp notification to my foreman when the temperature is greater than 5 degrees. So you can just build automation by checking that sensor's temperature. And as soon as it goes above 5 degrees Celsius, we trigger a WhatsApp message to go out. Again, no code needed.
Okay. So in general, what business challenges does Oculus address?
I think the biggest thing, if I were to kind of prioritize business challenges, the first thing we address is data distribution. Customers specifically have a problem with, once they know they have data and they have these reports, but how to get the data out into their customer base or their supplier network or whatever it is. So we do that via the means of the embedding and our licensing model. So data distribution becomes a lot simpler and easier when you use our software. The other point is a single point of truth, like how we connect to data sources, how we're able to bring multiple data sources together or different data models together for that matter and put it onto one specific dashboard. Say the last business challenge really is the ability to monitor your data. So you don't have to be reactive anymore, you can actually start to be proactive. So you can monitor, for example, like what IoT sensors give you, you can start to monitor that data in a much more real-time approach and actually take action when you see something's wrong versus taking action when something wrong has happened and you only become aware of it a day or 2 days later, as an example.
So how is Oculus different from leading global BI software?
Very common question I get, specifically when I'm introducing the software to new customers or partners. Specifically they ask, why do we use this when we have other tools available? And I think there's a variety of reasons again, but I would probably list them in terms of priority. So number one is, as a business, we're very agile in terms of how we deploy our software. So, and what I mean by that is because we're able to deploy on-premise, because we're able to kind of mold the customer or the solution for the customer to a specific need without changing the core basis of the product, it makes us very attractive in that sense to potential customers. Two is our licensing model. You can't just be cheaper than everyone else, you've got to be better. And we believe that our feature sets and our agility brings us to be a better offering for the customer. But then the pricing model comes along and I can wholeheartedly say that our pricing model is probably a good, I'd say 30% of what other leading BI global vendors are charging out there. So, specifically even in the South African context, we're a good option for customers who want to go that route.
Thanks so much for your time and input today, Robert. If any of our viewers have any more questions we haven't addressed, please pop them in the comments below and we'll be sure to cover them in our next series.